Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffee Fusion. This week we're going to check out my week with the Delter Coffee Press. Now the Delter Coffee Press has been on the market for about a year now, and originally people made the obvious comparisons between the AeroPress. When you look at them, they do look fairly similar. And while they do look similar, that's where the similarities end. The way that the Delter Coffee Press brews is very different and it has a very unique style of brewing. Now if we open up the box and do a little unboxing, you'll see that it comes with a little recipe card, the brewer itself, which has a syringe in the middle, and the little black cap at the bottom. That's where we're going to stick the filter in and place the coffee. If we unscrew the little black filter cap, you'll see that there's a little rubber stopper in there. That also doubles as a 6-gram dosing tool. But when you're brewing, you stick that little rubber stopper on top of the syringe so that you can push down easier. The recipe card that's included has some basic advice about how you'll use a brewer, but you can really manipulate a few things, so let's have a look at how the brewer works. One of the things that I really like about this brewer are the volume indicators for your water as you're filling it up. You can use these volume indicators to show how much water you're actually putting into the brewer, as well as showing how much water you're pushing into the coffee puck each time. I think this is really great as a travel brewer because you don't need a set of scales when you're brewing. You could potentially weigh out doses of coffee before you go and then just chuck that dose into the brewer and away you go. What I found when brewing with this device is when you lift that middle syringe up, the water will gently flow into the coffee chamber. Whereas when you push down on that syringe, that's when you're forcing the water through that jet seal and you're creating that agitation as you're brewing. So this is a pretty unique style of brewing and it's always fun to play around with new coffee brewers. So let's brew a cup of coffee. I've been playing around with the Delter Coffee Brewer for a few weeks now, so the recipe that I've come up with is to use the 12 grams of coffee as they suggested. I'm using a filter roast for my coffee and I'm using a fairly coarse grind, the same kind of grind that I would use for my V60. So I measure the coffee in, give it a little tap to settle those grounds, then I take my black filter cap with my pre-wet paper filter and screw that on. From here we pour the hot water in, so I've been using water that's at 96 degrees, so carefully pour it into the middle of that syringe there. So now we start the timer and we pull up that middle syringe until the water is sitting at the 50-gram mark. I'm using this like a bloom phase, so the water is slowly dripping into that coffee and I let that happen for about 30 seconds. At the 30-second mark, I push through what's left of that water and then I lift it up so the water is now at the 75 ml mark. When the timer hits 1 minute, I'm again going to push down that syringe and force that water through the coffee bed. And after I've done that, I'm going to lift the syringe back up a third time to get that last 75 ml ready. When I hit the 1.5 minute mark, I'm going to push down the last of that water so we have a total brew time of about 1 minute 40 to 1 minute 45 seconds. So flavor wise, what do we get in the cup? With the Delter Coffee Brewer and this recipe, I've definitely been getting some very clean, sweet cups. At least with this recipe, I found that the Delter Coffee Brewer has perhaps a little bit more body and a little bit less acidity than comparing the same brew ratio with, say, a V60. So after playing with one, would I buy one? Well, I've been using the AeroPress and other brewers like this for a very long time. The Delter Coffee Brewer, I haven't been brewing with that much yet. But I've found the brews that I've made, it's a really interesting brewer and certainly worth playing around with. They retail for about $50, and if you're living in Australia, you can grab one from my website. And for my limited time using it, I'm really interested to play around with more recipes and see if I can create different styles of coffee with this brewer. But what about you? Do you already have a Delter Coffee Brewer and you've got your own recipes? Perhaps you're on YouTube finding other recipes to play around with? If that's the case, put your recipe down below and I'll have a play around with your recipe and you can see what you think of mine. But maybe you're watching this video trying to decide whether you're going to buy one. I definitely think that they're interesting enough that they're worth having in your coffee kit. Thank you so much for checking out this video and having a look at my first look of the Delter Coffee Press. When they first came out, I had a little bit of a play and kind of dismissed them, but after playing with it a little bit more for the last couple of weeks, I think they're well worth checking out. If you like this video and learned something from it, just give this video a like. It really helps build the Coffee Fusion community. And if you really enjoy coffee and these kind of videos, subscribe because I've got new videos coming every week. As always, I'd love to see your comments down below. I always respond to those, but I'll see you next week for another video. Keep frothin'!